think we are ready. So hello everyone. Actually, some people will join us later, but we can start. We are with enough. So welcome to Celonis. Some of you I know your faces. Some of you are new. So Celonis, this is our base building here in Madrid. We have 6 floors. We have every kind of roles here. UX, PM, engineering. We're always looking for people to join us. So if you want to know more about what are we looking at the moment, just come to speak to me or Igor who was around before, or some of the guys that are working with us. Okay. What we do at Celonis, we are a product company. We have our own product, and we help companies to improve their processes. So it's part of big data. We help them to save money by improving their processes, saving time, and also do less damage to the environment. So which are the many things that is important here for us. Today we have Santosh and Yazan with us. They are part of our architectures of what we call one frontend, our frontend platform. They are the experts, and they want to tell us about NX and about the merge queue, and how we work, what our architectural implementation that we have at Celonis, which I think is very cool because we have like 30 projects, no?
300 projects with NX.
300 projects.
Yeah, 300.
Oh, I thought 430. So it's 30 teams. 45 apps. 45 apps. Okay, that was the number I was looking for. So as you see, handling this kind of volume is something hard, and I think it's a good experience to learn from them how we manage to do it. So they will speak for an hour or so. Once we finish, we will have some networking catering right here at the right where you enter. If you want to leave the building, you need to press P, okay, and it's the same door how you enter. And also important, that door there that is very tricky to see is the bathroom, okay, just behind the camera, okay. And if you need something else, just ask me or ask them, okay. So thank you, Santosh and Yazan.
Thank you. Okay, so am I audible or like should I use my? Yeah, I'm okay. So thanks for coming, everyone. My name is Santosh, and I'll start with like talking about NX. And then I'll hand over to Yazan about my skill, a little bit about myself. So I work as staff engineer at Celonis. I'm also a Google developer expert for Angular. I'm part of NX Champions program. I'm a GitHub star. And yeah, that's what I do. So let's talk about like our application. So I'll show you like how our application is, because when we actually like Alex spoke to us about this talk, because we have been traveling to different countries to deliver this talk, we thought like, why not to tell us about what we do, right? Like how we build our front-end application, because we have a very big app, as Alex mentioned. We have like close to 300 projects. We want more actually. That's what our goal is. We don't want to settle with 300 projects, but I'll tell you what. So this is how our application looks like. So this is something which is available on public. So you can go to Celonis and you can see our product. You will be able to access it. I think, yeah, anyone can actually access this product. And if you see on the right side, right? I'm not sure. Okay, your left side. So your left side. So if you see all the nav bars on the left, not this one, but this. So these are actually different products internally. I mean, we have different teams working on those. So we use NX for that. We use NX module federation. So each teams can have their own app, manage the code base, and live happily ever after, right? Who wants to like share a code base? Okay, anyway, so let's see, what is NX? So NX is a build tool which we use, and it has a monorepo support. So the advantage is, of course, monorepo, because we wanted everyone to have a common repository where everyone can keep their code, but with build tool, we get more advantage. So let's see what. So it provides a build cache. Now, once your code base increases, what is the impact? Your CI/CD pipeline, right? I mean, it will take more time to build your code base locally as well as on CI. Even running the test, right? Just think about like if as of today we have 45 projects, 45 applications and 300 projects. If I have to like rebuild everything again and again on every CI, probably we will both resign, right? But we don't want to do that. So that's why we use NX. So we can build we can cache our builds, and we don't have to build the same code base again and again. So we save a lot of time, and Yazan will talk about like how Merge Queue helps there. But just to give you an idea, we generally do 16 minutes average, right? 16 minutes average for like 2 million lines. This is pretty huge. Even though it's not just NX, we use Merge Queue to get the advantage, but NX can do this for you. And that's why we as I told, we want more projects. So if you have more projects, it means more caching. And if you hit more level of caching, it means you have faster builds on your local machine as well as on CI. Same with tests. So your tests, if you have more projects, it can be like you can run them on parallel, saving you tons of time. It's framework and technology agnostic. So of course you can bring your .NET, Java, you can bring React or Vue, or even you can bring Nest.js for, say, if you're using it for the backend. It's plugin based, so you can build your own tool. For example, one of the things which we do is we use feature flags for our front end. Any new implementation within Celonis on front end, we recommend them to use feature flags. Now, if we introduce it as a separate plugin, it will be hard, right? I mean, why someone wants to go to another code base and use something? So we help of the plugin-based architecture or plugin-based tooling which NX provides. We built our own plugin, which is part of our CI/CD platform. So anyone can just go ahead and start using feature flags by just running a generator or running a command which can generate all the files for them, and then they can just start building on top of it. So we use plugins a lot. As I mentioned, it supports some of the frameworks out of the box, for example, Angular, React, and Vue. But you can bring your own homegrown framework as well because of plugin. So you can build practically you can build anything you want with NX. And it supports micro frontend, but we are not using micro frontend. We are using model federation. But if you have a use case for micro frontend, it's like you don't have to do any extra configuration. It comes out of the box. So you can just start using it, and that's it. As I mentioned, it supports backend technologies. I think for Spring and .NET, you can just keep your front end and backend code together, and it allows you to do that. I think it supports Maven, Gradle, whatever build tool you have for Java. So a little bit about our code base. So more than 2 million lines of code. We have 40 plus apps and close to 300 projects, as Yazan mentioned. And then we have 40 plus teams actually contributing to that code base. Within that, now there was a question like, what's the difference between applications and projects? So by applications, which I mean is the applications, the Angular applications, right, or React applications. But you can split your code into different libraries or smaller chunks called libraries. Angular had the concept of libraries from day one, around Angular 6. But yeah, they support, like, you can build your entire app set as a different build or smaller builds called libraries. And that's what we recommend at Celonis. So we have now these 300, which is a good sign because we want to do more. So we want to have more projects, so we can take the advantage of NX Cache. So we actually right now have Angular applications, Nest.js. We use it as a backend for our front end, BFF, right? Good term. And then we have libraries, unit tests. We also have end-to-end tests. We also have Cypress component tests. And we use trunk-based development. On top of everything, like 2 million lines of code, we rely on our developers to go ahead and merge their code in main. Yes, that's all is possible because of the entire tooling we have with the help of NX. So let me show you like how we work today. So with the help of model federation, every team builds their own app, and it gets loaded inside a shell. So shell is nothing, just maybe a placeholder, right? So a placeholder where you can put whatever content you want. Generally, a shell contains nav. That's it. So in our case, this shell app is nothing but the nav bar which you saw. And when you click on the nav, any item on that navigation, it will load the specific app. It can be any app, right? You can add. But how to actually set up a new application with NX and module federation support? So this is what you can do. So before I go to that, I'll talk about the tasks. With NX, you can actually run multiple tasks. And when we generally talk about the task is something which you already do. Most of you probably already do in your projects as well. You build project, right? You run linting, you run end-to-end tests, you run unit tests. Those are actually something called tasks. This is important because when Yazan will talk about Merge Queue, this will come again. But yeah, let's see how you can create a new project with the help of NX and Angular and module federation. So you can create a new app just like using NX Angular. So this is CLI, which is provided by NX. It says NX Angular because there is NX React, NX Vue, and then you can create a module federated app for respective framework. This is Angular specific. So I'm saying, okay, go ahead and create a new Angular app where the host application will be called shell. You can call it whatever you want, but shell makes more sense because it's a shell, which will load the different applications. And then you can define remotes. Remotes is nothing but the apps. So here I'm defining 3 remotes. So there are 3 different apps which is being created when I create a new workspace for me. And all the setup will be taken care by NX. So I don't have to do it manually. So before like NX 13, this was all manual. This was all, there was a document, you have to follow all the manual, all the process, go ahead and add this file, that file, all the webpack file. Now it's automated, so you don't have to do anything. You will not even notice the configuration files. It's like all absorbed within the NX itself. So now for adding a plugin, you can actually just create a new plugin by doing this command. So you can say NX add, NX plugin, and then you can start writing your own plugin. Now you can define where you want to put your plugin. Generally at within Celonis, we try to put it inside infra because this is something which our developers should not care about. It should just come under the main team, core team, who is building plugins for them. So we generally keep it outside. So with NX, you can keep your code in any folder you want. For example, your apps, you can just define whatever folder you want to keep your apps in. Same with libraries. So they allow this. So we just generally keep like if you are building our plugin, any plugin, we try to keep it separate from apps and libraries. So developers know like where they should be creating their own project. And this is only for plugin. And then bring your own plugin. Now, once you have created a new module federated application, it means you have already available shell. But in future, you may need to add more applications, right? That's possible. So this is the command. You can just say NX Angular. And then you can say, rather than host, you can say remote. So now you are defining a new application which will be loaded inside shell. And again, no configuration required. You just run this command and then you are ready to load your new application, which will be made available. So this is an example where we're saying, okay, this is the new app. Because LLMs are cool, right? Okay, but there might be possibility that, okay, when you are, so this differs from organization to organization, and this is we have seen that maybe after like following all this new application and new libraries command from NX, you reach a stage where you say, okay, so now my team is big, and I want some people to follow the specific commands. For example, let's say if they create a new application or new library, I want maybe Cypress component test configured for them because that's the new standard in my company. So that's allowed, that's possible. So this is what we do at Celonis. So we, after working for 2 years, we decided, hey, I think we also keep doing experiments with the team. So at one point of time, we did experiment with Cypress component test, and we reached a stage where said, this is really helpful for us, and we want to make it as standard. So whenever you create a new application or new library, we want everyone to have Cypress component configured by default. So we don't want them to do it for them. So this is where generators comes into picture. So NX gives you generators, which you can create. It's part of the plugin system actually. And then you can override the existing functionality of any command which NX gives to you. For example, new project, new library, and then you can start writing on top of it. So here, for example, in our code base, whenever you create a new Angular project, we also add a component test. So the developers don't have to do this. They just start writing the new component test whenever they create a new library. So, so once they're done with this, we found, okay, there are some requirements where we have to generate some files for a project or for a library. One example is, let's say if you are using some way of documentation, right? So where you need some extra files which will be picked up by, let's say, your SRE team or someone to read that file and maybe create a Datadog monitor for you. So that's possible with NX. So what we do generally is you can keep your files which you need to write to the disk after your project or your library is created into a folder called files. You can decide, like, it's files is common pattern, but you can name it whatever you want. And then you can pass the options. So this is key value pair. So I'll say, okay, this name will be a placeholder inside the dynamically generated file, and I can pass the values. It can be anything based on different project or different library you create. And inside the template, so whatever file you add inside your folder, they have to just follow this standard. So you can say .template. You can generate any file, like TypeScript, HTML, any YAML file. For example, let's say if you want to create GitHub action files. So let's say you start a new project, and now you as a developer has created a CLI tool to like generate a new repository for it. And then you also want to write some of the GitHub actions files. You can do that. So you can just keep everything inside your files folder, just write all the YAML file dot template, and then it will be written on the disk. So as a developer, if you're working more on a developer experience side, this is really helpful, right? So you are improving the experience of your developers. That's what we do. So we try to make sure that our developers don't have to struggle. So they just focus more on writing code. They don't have to struggle with how to create a new project, how to make sure my Datadog monitors are created, or some random stuff, right? So we avoid all this by using the generators. So our developers focus more on writing code. And this is an example. This is something called ext.js. So this is actually valid JavaScript syntax if you are using EJS. So this is actually will be replaced once you pass this file. Now, one important part of our life is maintaining code base, right? I mean, it's not about just maintaining the large code base, but most of the time what we do is maintain the code base. And this is where we use NX and Sonar. We combine both of them to get best of both, right? And see like how we can maintain our code base. Generally, this is what we do in our code bases. We focus on refactoring because, of course, at some point of time, your code becomes too big, you have to refactor, right? So one of the target for us is creating more libraries, for example, refactor them into smaller chunks. Deprecations. So this is also we promote a lot. So in case you're not using something, deprecate. Generally, yeah, developers, or I think we all are really bad at it, right? We just write to be removed, and we never remove it. But this is very important because it makes your code base smaller, right? You don't have to build that code. And then we, as part of our jobs, we also migrate code sometimes. So for example, in our code base, you see like 45 code applications now, but when we started, we were like 5. So we started like helping other teams to migrate their code base to our repository, and that's also possible with NX. One more tasks we do is adding linters. This is something which is an ongoing process, right? And linters and introducing new tools. This is because linters keep changing. Maybe there is a new linter which is available, and you may want to add it for everyone. NX makes your life easier because now you can just add once, and then it's available for everyone. Same with any new tool which is available. You can just add it once, and it's available for your entire application or the entire team which is using your monorepo. So let's see how we actually use NX with Sonar. So there is a command called NX graph. So if you have a NX monorepo, you can run NX graph, and it will give you a list of projects. You can select a project, for example, this, and then you can see the dependency graph, how they are dependent on each other. So here, let's say, for example, integration is our app, and these are the different libraries which is like on which integration is dependent. So you can see more clear picture, right? So how my code base is. If this is a single huge black box, that means your code base sucks. So it means you're not getting anything out of NX. You're not getting any advantage of NX. You just have it because someone told you to have NX. That's it. The good So now the question is like, how should we think about libraries? So this is where Sonar comes into it. So what we did is we just went to our application. We saw like, okay, there is 1,000, like 145K lines of code in this application. It means it's a bigger. And we did a build. It takes a lot of time. So we knew like, okay, this is something which needs to be refactored. And just think about like this specific app has 2,000 testers. Now we are not taking advantage of NX cache, as well as we are not able to run them in parallel because it's just a huge bunch of black box. Even if we change one line of code, it means we are building 145K lines of code every time for one line of change. So now we knew that we have to do something. So we went deep. We said, okay, let's go ahead and see inside the folder how it looks like. So there is this shared folder, 50,000 lines of code. So of course, no one shares 50,000 lines of code. It means there is some reusable code which I can move. And same with this, like, so pull, it says 73,000 lines of code. So this is where you can target first, right? You can just go to Sonar, see your applications, see like which folder has how many lines of code, and you can start splitting from there. Generally, if you are creating a new app, I recommend treat every component as a library. So the best way to actually describe this is your library should be a Lego block, a small Lego block, like which you can move anywhere. But if you already made a building, then forget about moving your Lego block, because once you remove something, something else will break. So always think about that. I mean, whenever you are creating a new project, any new code which you write can be a new library. So you can take the advantage of your cache. So you run your builds faster, as well as you can take advantage of your machines on CI because you're paying for it. But if you're not using it enough, you're losing money there as well, right? So with help of NX projects, you can actually run them in parallel. Now you utilize all the CPUs. Cool. So next part is tooling, right? So we, of course, as an engineer, you also introduce new tools to your team. For example, we said Cypress component test, which we experimented with. But there is a problem with tooling. So actually, sometimes they are like very time consuming. Right? I mean, just think about if you don't have NX monorepo, you have 10 different projects. You have to just go ahead and repeat everything at 10 different places. But there is another problem with this. Even though if they are easy to integrate, they are more expensive to manage. Because if you have 10 repositories, you have to go ahead and update at some point of the time. Right? And now with all the security concerns, and I don't know how security engineers have become, or the hackers have become more innovative every day. They want to steal your data. It's very important to keep your repositories or packages updated. So you have to rely on tools which is easy to maintain. So NX makes that easier for us. So NX gives you some of the tooling out of the box. For example, the most widely used ones, Cypress, Playwright. So they give you all this integration out of the box. You can just add a new Cypress project first by just running this command: NX add, NX Cypress, NX add, NX Playwright. All the configuration already available for you. You can just start using it without doing it. Same with unit test tool. So they also support Vite. If you are a React developer, you can just start using from today. This is something which is not available for Angular yet because Angular does not support Vite out of the box. But in future, let's say once Angular starts supporting it, I can just rely on NX and start using Vite for running my tests. Now, updating, because we said like the most important part is, or most difficult part is to maintain it. So NX offers a command called NX migrate. Now, this is something which is available for all the tool which is provided by NX. React, Angular, like your frameworks, whenever they offer a new release, you can just go ahead and run NX migrate for that specific package, and they will migrate your code to the latest version. Also applying the code migration. For example, let's say if you have a React code base, CRA is dead, right? React does not, it's not maintained, it's deprecated. You can use NX to migrate your React code base to Vitess without writing a single line of code. It takes care of 90% of the migrations just by running a single command. And in case, let's say, for example, we use Angular, of course. So if we have to migrate from Angular version 15 to 16, we can just go ahead and say NX migrate and give the Angular version which we need to migrate, and it will just do everything for us. So we use for NX migrate for all the migrations which we do. Even like we take some time because of course our setup is not that easy. We have, as I said, like, more than 2 million lines of code and then different applications. So sometimes some apps break due to dependencies, but most of the time it works. So this is about NX. So my friend Yazan will take care of CI/CD now.
Nice, thank you. It's always hard to be after him. He's the star of stuff like GitHub and NX and just a normal engineer. So my name is Yazan. I'm also a staff engineer at Celonis. Been there for 6 years already. We also work at the same team. We focus on the development experience together. And after him talking about the tools that we use and the tasks we run at Celonis, like tasks and build and linting, there is where the place comes that you need to check all of the changes that you create in the pull request, which comes CI/CD into the place. At Celonis, we use GitHub. CI stands for continuous integration, which means that you need to define a list of tasks that needs to be green before you merge to the main branch or the base branch. For example, unit tasks and end-to-end tasks needs to be green before merging to the main branch. That is the continuous integration. We have CD. CD stands for continuous for two things: either continuous delivery, which means you need someone when you merge to the main branch, you need someone to approve the deployment to a specific environment before it gets merged. For example, for us, it's the QA. The QA team approves the deployment before it gets deployed to a specific environment. There is also continuous delivery, continuous deployment. Continuous deployment means anything you merge to the main branch or to the base branch gets deployed directly to a specific environment. For example, we have right now specific environments and clusters we deploy to. And when you merge to the base branch, we go directly to a specific environment that can be tested and fixed. We all the time when we started working on one repository for all of our front-end applications and libraries, we keep getting a request to enhance the resources we have for the CI. Because for GitHub, the default machine is 2 cores. And imagine running all of the 400 projects in the 2 cores or 300 projects. We tried it last night. It was taking like 7 hours to finish, and sometimes it doesn't finish at all. That's why we are running now into bigger machines for our GitHub actions. Before I go into the merge queue, our life before the merge queue was. Before we started with front-based development, our life that we have a base branch, which is called the main branch. You create a pull request, an engineer creates a pull request, waiting for the checks or for the CI to be green, and then can be merged. But at some point, if you work with the 10 engineers, that's fine because you can update from the main branch, make sure everything is green before getting merged to the main branch. And if you work with 10 people, then you can expect to update the branch, I would say 5-10 times, that's fine. But at some point at Celonis, we grow the team to 400 front-end engineers, and that will become a bottleneck for the engineers to keep updating their branch. And in GitHub, you can even have it forced for the main branch to be updated all the time before you can merge. And that's what the merge queue came to fix. You just do 3 steps, create a pull request, add it to the merge queue or a queue that runs the checks for all of the pull requests from the main branch. So every time the branch is updated or the pull request is updated, there is no need for the engineers to take care of updating the branch, and then it gets merged by GitHub directly. This is we can have, for example, four requests needs to join the merge queue. Before they merge, before they join, they need to run the CI checks on their pull request. All of them needs to be green before they can join. If one of them fail, let's say on the CI, but they cannot join the merge. So it's kind of duplicate checks, but it makes sure to have everything in one place before they can join the base branch. Here we have 3 pull requests very clean. They can join the merge queue and start running. The merge queue size is 3, which means that you can run 3 pull requests in parallel. Even though if 10 pull requests join, they cannot run all of them in parallel. So you can define that on the settings or in GitHub Actions. I'm not sure if there is other like GitLab or other Bitbucket and stuff. They have merge queue or not. I didn't check. But for GitHub, you can define the size of the merge and how many pull requests can run in parallel in the merge queue. If the first one joins, GitHub creates a virtual branch, they call it, contains the changes from the main branch and the changes from the pull request. When the second pull request join as well, GitHub creates another virtual branch containing the changes from the first one and the second one, and as well the main branch changes. So there's sync between all of the pull requests that in the size of the merge queue. Now the third one joins, GitHub as well creates another branch that joins all of the changes together and then starts running the CI checks for all of them, making sure all of them are green. When they are green, they can be merged. So this thing of the merge queue helped us a lot at Celonis to avoid integration issues when multiple engineers working together. So we don't introduce breaking changes together to the base branch. This feature for the merge queue have been there for a year almost, and we enabled it last year, so it's something new for us as well. And this is a couple of best practices we found while working with the merge queue. The first one that we found is to stay focused when you create a pull request. Focus on a small changes, like small chunks, I would say, before create a pull request. This helps to review the pull request faster and makes the changes or the CI checks faster on the merge queue, so you don't block the merge queue for a while. Or imagine someone changes something that affects the 400 projects that we have, then all of the 3 pull requests in the size will need to run all of the 400 checks. That's why we try to avoid big changes. We try at our team to make sure that just checks on the merge queue are fast enough. Our KPI right now is 15 minutes average to merge to the main branch for the 400 projects. We are trying to make it as low as possible. Like our next KPI would be 10 minutes instead of 15. We use Squash. Squash meaning that when you develop something and you create commits into the pull request, those commits, if you don't squash them, they will be appearing into the main branch. So sometimes we will, just git commit fix, git commit, try or something like this. So those are like dummy commits that we don't understand what they are. So we use Squash when we merge. So we squash all of the commits into one, and GitHub uses the pull request title as the merge commit. So if you have the title descriptive and nice enough, then you can see them on the merge squashed. We try also to document the process so other people can understand what is happening in the merge queue. And if the merge queue is failing randomly, what should be the process for it? What should be done for the teams to understand why it's failing and how to debug it? I forgot.
Yes. Should I disconnect? It's back. Okay. The other best practice we found also to avoid late changes, but
for example, when you join the merge queue, you should not be pushing more changes into your pull request, because pushing more changes would cause the merge queue to rerun because it's now out of sync. Luckily, GitHub avoid that, prevent that by disabling the branch from getting more commits. So you cannot push anymore if you join the merge queue. We have also created a lot of Datadog monitoring in place. So because we are working with 500, 400 engineers at one repository, we need to keep an eye if there is something failing, because not all of engineers, they actually report the errors. So at our team, we need to know that, hey, the merge queue is failing aggressively and someone needs to take an action. We also ask the engineers, if you queue a pull request and it failed in the merge queue and get kicked out, please do not add it again to the merge queue, because you're causing other engineers to wait because you're failing, or I would say your issues or your problem in your changes on your pull request could cause other pull requests to be kicked out as well, because it's a one bunch of commits in one. At Celonis, we use GitHub Actions with NX, as Santosh explained, and we found multiple best practices that we always tell people to use when they use NX, because the combination of both is really super powerful. The first one is, as mentioned in the beginning, we use larger runners at GitHub because GitHub provides bigger machines that you can use. Right now, they have up to 250 cores that you can use in your enterprise. It's costly and costs a lot of money, but it also saves time for the engineers. So if you have 400 engineers and you do the math, you see that it's saving more time than you and cost than you expected. And unfortunately, at Celonis, we were not able to optimize or utilize all of the cores that we are getting because of our dependency graph, which Santosh explained. We still have some problems for historical reason, because we were outside one repository. There was multiple standards at Celonis, and we started doing one standard newly. So it will take us a lot of time to utilize all of the parallel utilization we have. We also we are now running the regression tests or end-to-end tests at the merge queue, which helped us a lot to catch regression issues or breaking production or breaking future features in the merge queue before going to the best branch. So that was one of the best practices we found. It also helped us catching earlier issues before, especially if a company has continuous deployment to a specific environment. If you go to the main branch with the breaking tests, then you are blocking other people coming after you. But if this is cached already or caught already on the merge queue, then it will not go to the main branch and the deployment continue working as expected. Another best practice we found with GitHub Actions is using NX cache. There is multiple ways to do NX cache, but our one we prefer the free version to just push our commits to a specific bucket. And the cache means here for NX, you can define which let's say which tasks that should not be rerunning again and again on the CLI. If nothing changes, then why should we rerun it again? For example, building an Angular application, why should I build it again if it's nothing changed inside? And at Celonis, we have like 45 projects, and they are taking about 25 minutes to build, because Angular is costly. And with the caching now, it's taking just a couple of seconds, because if you just change one app, that app will build, and other apps will just be downloaded from the cache. This is just an example of what Santosh explained. On the CI, if it changes, we use all the time affected tasks. We don't run all of the tasks at the CI. We just run the affected ones. And for example, the shell app is dependent on those 3 projects. If you change one of those projects, the shell app will rerun all of the targets that it has. And this is also one of the best practices we do at Celonis. We run only affected stuff. This is also an example that multiple apps or projects that can be dependent on the same library or multiple libraries. But as you see from the graph, apps cannot be dependent on each other because it's not a best practice. You always the small entity should be a library, and library should be reshared between apps, and apps should be just the entry point of those libraries. For example, this function is used in two apps, app 1 and app 3. If you change the definition or the name of that function, only those two apps will be affected and run tasks and build and end-to-end tests. With Annex, they have a simple command to run the affected task. It's just Annex affected, and you can define which targets are you interested in. And this is what we are doing now in the CI because it helps with also parallel runs for the CI. You can also do them in sequence, like Annex affected and one target only if you don't have enough parallel or larger runners like we have. But this is like the optimized way for Annex to run. For Annex cache, we are using S3 bucket, our own S3 bucket. And how Annex cache works, we have Annex uses it doesn't use get or anything, it just uses hashing for the files. Each file can get a one hash, and if that file changes, the hash output of that file will be changing. And then Annex combine all of the hashes for one project, creates another hash from them, and make sure if the hash is changing, then rerun from the scratch. If the hash is the same, then download from the S3 bucket. And that usually takes just 1 second and less to download the tasks, and it's really nice. And how Annex decides what is to upload to the cache, it's from an array called outputs. And those outputs, for example, for an Angular project, it's the dest folder. And this dest folder gets all of it uploaded to the S3 bucket for us. And then when you go to the CI and rerun the same hash again, it downloads that from the S3 bucket and gets deployed directly without needing to rerun the whole thing from the scratch. What happened? Sorry. Now Santosh will explain more about Sonar topic, Celonis.
Thanks, Yazan. So thanks for talking about Merge Queue. So one thing which we found is, of course, you can write code, but you can scroll. Right? We all can do that. This is where Sonar is really helpful because it tells you that, oh, your code is really bad. You think you are good, but no, you are really bad. So we actually have multiple checks within Celonis to make sure that we don't suffer. Like we are at manageable position that, okay, this is good, we are good. So we have 3 checks right now. 2 of them are blocker. So first one is coverage. So if we get like less than 80% of the coverage for new code, we block the PR. We say, okay, go ahead and write test, which no one likes to do, right? I'm sure no one likes to do, but we have to, right? That's how we get paid. And then the second check is duplicates. So Sonar by default actually has accepted percentage of 3. So up to 3% of duplication is allowed. It's by default in Sonar. You can change it, but we kept it default just to make sure people are not duplicating enough. So for any UPRs, if there is the duplication is more than 3%, we reject it. We say, okay, just go ahead and refactor your code base and come with like duplication of less than 3%, so you can merge your PR. Now, third one is Sonar also has a lot of checks, which is sometimes almost same as your linter. You use Angular linter maybe if you are working with Angular, and Sonar also has a lot of linting rules on top of it, which is something which you can enable from your Sonar dashboard. Now it's up to you whether you want to make it available or not. So we have some multiple checks. For example, we have checks for maintainability and as well as for accessibility. So for accessibility, we use Xlinter. So we make sure like whatever we are building, the new code is accessible. And this is not blocking. So we don't keep it there are multiple reasons behind it, because maybe teams don't have right now the maybe they don't have time to go ahead and fix the issues, everything. Like maybe there are sometimes they just add a tag and then their entire HTML is complaining about, hey, you have a list of accessibility issues because we wrote this 2 years ago. And we don't want to block this. So this is generally what we follow. You can decide for your own, but this works pretty well for us. One thing with module federation and multiple projects with NX, we also want to give this functionality or flexibility to actually decide the teams on their own that how much code coverage they want. But yeah, this is something which we are working on, but most of the things are already in place. Now, sometimes teams actually struggle with few things. For example, of course, I spoke about the code coverage, so I'm not going to talk about it. If you see the duplication, this is how it looks like. And the teams sometimes struggles to figure out like what is duplicated. Sonar is not very intuitive when it comes to duplication. And we found that, okay, this is a problem, like teams should be aware of it. So this is an example, like how you can actually see your duplicate code in Sonar whenever it complains about one. You can go to the file and you will see these lines. Very bad way to tell you that this is duplicated, but yes, this is how it works. So you can see the lines. One line means it is duplicated once. It tells you which file and from line number this to this. And you can open this file. Now there's no link, so you have to manually go to this file and see, okay, this is the function which is duplicated. There are instances it may be duplicate thrice, so you will see the number of lines. So if you have more than 2, I think this is a red flag for everyone, right? Why should I just copy paste the same function 3 times in 3 different files? It means we need to refactor. So I'll show you. Yeah. So this is what we do. So of course, there is one scenario which is acceptable is feature flags. So if you use feature flag in your code base, of course, in that case, the duplicate code is acceptable. But it means like you are also bypassing something, right? Because this is a blocking thing. So to bypass, in case you have Sonar Cloud already implemented and you see a scenario where you have now feature flags and now you're duplicating the file, but you don't want to refactor your code because you want to play safe. Maybe you can roll back the feature flag. There is a property available in Sonar. So you can just go to sonar.cpd.exclusion and mark the old file as ignored. Just make sure that you're marking the old file, not the new one, right? So otherwise, you will keep writing code and it will never complain about it. So you can just add your file here and you can bypass. Not bypass, but keep your Sonar happy. So this is one process which we follow at Celonis as well. The other one is the blocking issues which comes to standards, right? Your linting rules are X-linter checks. So whenever you have any issues like that, you can just click on the link which is provided by a Sonar Cloud, click on new issues, and you can just click on the new issues and there is a pop-up which comes after this. You can accept all the issues and move ahead. This is not blocking. So Sonar. So Sonar had this from day one that any issues related to this is non-blocking. So you can just accept these issues. For example, let's say you get an accessibility issue, right? So you get some issues in your code base which you have never touched, but it was an old code. Now Sonar is complaining about accessibility. You can accept those issues and say, hey, we don't care about accessibility, or we'll fix it later. And then you can move on. So that will resolve the issues and as well as unblock your peer. So that's possible. Now, just an added thing. So as I mentioned feature flag, so why not to speak about it, right? So we use feature flag. We recommend, like, whenever you are writing a new feature within Celonis, feature flag. So it's like you have to do feature flags. But why, right? I mean, there should be a reason, right, why we are recommending it. Because one thing is feature flags is tricky. You will find a lot of solutions out there for feature flags. There are companies making billions just by having a solution for feature flags. We don't use any tool. We built our own because we know our product based and we know like how we want to have this feature flag solution. So we built our own, but why we wanted to have it is like we have 2 million lines of code. Now we have reached at a stage where anyone can take production. I mean, because apart from having 45 apps, we have libraries which are shared. So, I mean, if I make any changes to the shared library, it means I'm updating 400 projects. And especially in case of new features, we have to be really careful. Now, we cannot just screw up your weekend because someone else screwed up, right? And at Celonis, one thing which we care about is your weekends. I really mean it, because Yeah. If there is anything which is wrong with our deployment, disable the feature flag, go home, come back on Monday and work with a fresh mind. That's what our approach is. That's why we said, okay, let's go with the feature flag, because you can be happy, right? So if you have your code behind feature flag, others are on fire, but you are happy having your coffee because I'm not the one. It is someone else. So you are happy that you have you are not the one responsible for breaking production. But generally, the expectation is like whenever you merge your backend and front end code, your expectation is, of course, everything will go well. Because as a developer, we believe in ourselves more than what we should be doing, right? We sometimes overestimate ourselves. And as soon as you merge your front end and back end, this is what happens. So everything falls apart. And then you're just revalidating your decision to become a developer. You're just like, okay, let's become a farmer probably. So that's why we actually have a feature flag in place. What you can do with this feature flag is actually, we support multiple ways to enable a feature flag. So we say, okay, if you want to try out a new feature flag, just speak to a team or a user, convince them to use this feature for you. Because of course, at the end, they are the one who will be struggling in case you ship a buggy feature, right? Check with them for a week, take your time. If that particular team or particular user is happy, maybe roll out to the other users. It means percent of users. So we also support like percentage of users on top of a team as well. So we can also combine these two. So we say, okay, for X team, let's enable this feature for 50% of the users and see like how the feedback is. We have functionality to enable it for a cluster. So for example, let's say if we have a cluster deployed for maybe Bank of America, we can speak to Bank of America and say, hey, we have a new feature, I think, which can help you. Would you like to try this out? And then we can just go ahead and enable this feature for that particular customer. We also support doing specific build. This is something where we have, let's say, POCs, right? So we have a POC and we want to try out this POC. So what we do is we tag our particular build and say, okay, this build will be used for this particular users. We can also do that with our feature flag solution, which we have, and then we can combine all of them. So at Celonis, our recommendation is always go with as minimum as possible. Try it for a week, then increase it. Let's say go 10%, then 50. Maybe if you have more confidence after going 10%, go to 50%. But don't like just go ahead and burn the entire production, right? So you can always control this using feature flag, and it's not like this is only supported by our solution. Any feature flag solution, you will get all those features. You can just go ahead and try this out, right? But it's always better to break a specific feature rather than breaking the entire application, because it can isolate bug. Now you know like where to look at in case something goes wrong, if it is related to your feature. Otherwise, just think about finding a bug into middle lines code. We are not sure what happened. It also gives you advantage of rolling back features. So if I'm doing something on Friday, it broke my application, I can just roll back and go home, right? I don't have to spend my weekends fixing it because others are blocked because of you. And you can actually ship feature with more confidence. You know, like what is the worst thing can happen? I have to roll back the feature flag. That's it. I don't have to fix it on Sunday, right? So this is it from us. Actually, this is a team name, one front-end team, but don't email that. So this is it from us. If you have any questions, of course, we can take it. And yeah. Thank you, Alex.
Have the Catherine ready yet, because we have these two guys that they know a lot. I think it's a good time to ask them some questions. I'm pretty sure you guys have some. No? You can just raise your hand.
I do have some questions. In my team, we're using also monorepos, but we're using German. I wanted to know if, well, we want to migrate to NX. I think that we're not sure what is the path that we should follow. Not sure if we use base this issue in the past, having to migrate from one technology to another, and how did you do it? How did you manage to complete it?
Okay, so
Can you repeat the question?
yeah, just to repeat the question. So his question is like they have an monorepo but with an learner, and now they want to migrate to NX. So what is the recommended approach? So to give you the answer, NX and learner both are owned by the same company. So they also have the migrations. So if you look at the doc, there are actually ways you can just migrate it using a CLI. You don't have to do it manually.
Just one comment.
Yeah.
That replaces all the learner stuff to NX.
Yeah. So you use Angular or you are using
Angular.
Yeah, you are using Angular. This should be easy. So just go to the doc and it will guide you.
And they now recommending using NX.
Yeah.
Okay. To a CLI instead.
The other thing that I wanted to know is related with mode federation. We're also using mode federation, but not with NX, right? We're using directly the Angular Architects library to use it. I wanted to know if, well, we also want to eventually migrate to native federation. I'm not sure if that's also in your path.
Yeah.
And how are you planning to do it?
So right now we're also using Angular architecture as well, but from NX, it's just wrapped in NX. We are working on migrating to module federation version 2, the latest one with the native one you mentioned. Our approach is just we try it and we first start with the shell app because it's backward compatible with the old one, so you still can migrate project by project. You don't need to migrate all of them at once. So we started with the host or the shell app, and we're trying it with project Ventoo and see how it works. If all good, we will migrate all of it to the latest version. Because also they have a lot of tooling in place that allows you better debugging, better in manifests defined. So if you are migrating, that's really nice because the latest version is much better than the Angular architecture one.
Just one more.
Yeah, sure.
This is related with. You mentioned your process right for the code review. But you don't have a manual code review, right? That's what I'm trying to. Everything goes through an automated process, but in that process, there's no someone reviewing the code, like a person doing that.
So we do have, like he's asking if we have some like automated PR, like a review, code review, or it's manual, you know, this is what you're asking.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a person doing the code review at some time.
Because we are splitting NX into, I would say, module based, like horizontal, like each team, they own a project in NX. In our monorepo, we have a code owner defined in place for each project. So if you change something, those code owners are notified that, hey, this PR is changing your project, please review. But we don't have automated things still. We are looking into Copilot, but right now it's all manual. The owners goes into the pull request, they get notified and it gets labeled by the team name, and then they can filter on the team names and see if they, if they need to review something or not. So it's team based, depending on the NX project you have. So we have a tool we use for generating code owners. Because in GitHub you cannot define an owner per project. You need a flat one in the git.github folder. But we are using a tool. I forgot what is the name.
GitHub distributed owners.
Yeah, distributed owners. It's written on Go, I think. That we use to generate the code owners automatically, not manually managing it. So we define an owner per project. That's how we are doing it. But no automation.
NX also has a new paid plugin for code owners.
Yes.
Yeah, if they want to check this out. I don't know, like I'm not happy with code owners the way it works. I think most of us are not happy. Go ahead and check out.
Because of GitHub.
Yeah.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, you mentioned you built your own in-house tool for feature flags, right?
Yes.
So do we have some kind of like custom attributes, let's say, which you can find that this feature could be available only from mobile or something like that?
We do have a data array in place that is only available if this feature is active. So you can access the data when the feature is active on your code or new logic. You can also have different data depending on different environment, I would say. Like if A is defined, this data should be done. If B is defined, this data can be. So yeah, it's flexible enough for us.
And do you have some kind of like metrics to check the conversion of the specific feature? Or
we do have, we are using Datadog at Celonis. All of our metrics and logs and stuff are Datadog. So we have a monitoring, or I would say something in place that we compare when the feature is active and when not, and see what is the difference there. Like, is it faster? Is it slower? How many errors are introduced? Is it less errors? So we have a monitoring in place to compare features.
okay, thank you.
But because Datadog is awesome, I don't know. They have a lot of nice stuff, but some people use Grafana because it's for free. It's harder there to do stuff, but for us, for Datadog, it's more flexible. Questions?
You mentioned about best practice running end-to-end test. It's related to merge queue, or it's related to when you create PR?
Good question. So right now we run them on the merge queue because they are heavy. We wanted to run them on the pull request as well, but some people would say it's too much to run an end-to-end tests on each commit you push. So we decided to move them to the merge queue. Is kind of after you finish development and you're ready for like you say, my code is ready. So merge queue is the way. But some people say, okay, pull request could be nice, but imagine you have a huge amount of regression tests and end-to-end tests that will consumes a lot of resources and a lot of time just to run them on the pull request, especially if someone is not yet done with development. But if you have the fast ones and they use mocks and good practices for testing, I would run them on the pull request as well.
And do you think, or maybe separate like add text regression and maybe small end-to-end tests?
We nice you mentioned it. We have also we run smoke test actually on the pull request, so we make sure that no fire is happening, and we run on top of them the regression tests on. Yeah, I forgot to mention.
How long it takes regression?
It depends on which machine you are using. Right now we have access to 192 cores, which takes 15 minutes to run 2,000 regression test cases with Playwright.
Okay.
If they are in Cypress, they will take a lot of time because they are in sequence, and you need to pay money to be able to run them in parallel with Cypress Cloud. But with Playwright, it's coming for free. You can just split all of the things into parallel with Playwright, and that's what we are using. We're using fully parallel, and it's taking for us 15 minutes. Without parallelism, it takes 5 hours. So you need to pay money to make it faster. Other questions?
I have a also, I don't know, like you are using right now different work approach, some design system library, or like just like externalizing the components that you're using in your applications.
Sorry,
He's asking if we are using a specific design library for the monorepo, like one, if we each team have their own.
yeah. So we do have a design system, but it's not inside our one front, like our repository. So it's an NX project, but built separately, and then we just publish it and use it as well.
We call it emotion.
Because we are very emotional.
The
the CI/CD pipeline relate to the infrastructure environment that you have? You have a CI/CD pipeline for every environment, like one for staging, one for production, or you somehow mix those infrastructures.
Okay. So we use trunk-based development. There is a base branch that all of the teams needs to merge to. We run there a couple of checks, and then we deploy to an environment called develop, which there you can check your changes, make sure they are running as expected, and then weekly on Monday, we check out a release branch. And that release branch runs also the same checks and deploy to a staging environment. Staging environment, we have beta and alpha. And then when the testing is done, we go into production roughly Wednesday. So weekly, we do a release, weekly release. We are trying to reach more releases when things are becoming more stable, like twice a week or 3 times a week, but we are not there.
So it's kind of the same pipeline, but in a given
Specific environment. We try to reuse the same configurations because it's hard to maintain, to write a lot of workflows or YAML flags in the CI. So we're trying to make sure we are reusing the same logic, just a different environment. It's just an input we change when we trigger a workflow.
Also regarding pipelines, I guess like you might be pretty big at this point. I'm not sure how are you managing like these kind of big pipelines if you're like spreading modules or something. Because for example, in our enterprise we have it's a hybrid application, and inside this pipeline we also generate Android build, iOS build, the desktop build, and the web version. That's like for the multiple stuff that we deploy on Android and containing how we store. So how are you like managing these big pipelines? Like are you splitting anything modules?
So with NX, you still can split by module base and use affected, and then you know what's exactly to build. But for worst case scenario, you need to pay more, get more machine, like bigger machines. There was no we talked to the teams and asked them, hey, could you please optimize this? It's taking a lot of time. Could you please remove this because it's not unnecessary time consuming? So we talked to the teams to make better, I would say. But in general, to make things faster, we need more machines. Right now, we are not using GitHub machines anymore because they are expensive. We moved to AWS spot instances with a tool called Runs On. I don't know if you heard about it. It manages the self-hosted machines, but with spot instances from AWS, which makes it cheaper because it's spot. So you pay less and less money for it, and you get more cores. It's almost 80% cheaper than what we have with GitHub Actions. So we save a lot of money.
What's the name again?
Runs On. Yeah, just runs-on.com. Yeah, great. What question?
So all this setup.
Don't you work with us?
But I guess not everyone is using NX or a monorepo or Sonar or all this setup. So I want to ask you, like, when this is worth to have. It depends on how many developers you have, how many projects you have, because it's expensive and also takes time to have it.
You're an NX star. You should answer that.
I mean, I will recommend NX from the day one. I mean, so because I have done migration for some of my clients like pretty late. For example, one of them was ClickUp, so it's a productivity tool. And by the time they moved to NX, what's like their code base was pretty huge already, and they were struggling with all these build issues, running. They had zero tests. Just don't tell them. But I told you. But yeah, so they had zero tests, but the build was taking so much time. So then they went again to see why we are taking so much time, and then they figured out that they want NX, and within a year, we ended up creating close to 300 libraries just within a year, because they needed it from the day one. I mean, if they went NX from day one, they might have been happy. Same with Sonar. If they had Sonar in place, maybe Sonar will shout at them and say, hey, you have so many duplications, or you have already so many issues in your code base. What are you doing? But one instinct as a developer, we all have is to see everything green, right? So we try to avoid these tools which can shout at you and say, hey, you're wrong. So
we actually tried multiple tools like Bazel and Learn as well, and we found NX is like more intuitive to work with than other tools. But there is also a lot of tools doing the same what NX does, like Project Base knows which folder is updated and which tasks to run. But for TypeScript, for frontend, for Node.js, I mean, they are now advertising that they can work with Java. And Go, I think they have some plugins. Yeah. So even Rust backend as well. So it helps to build your own in a modular way, but sometimes if you don't have a good structure or architecture, you could also end up with a huge code base in one project and don't use NX as intended.
Are you currently working with NX things that like Java and other things apart from?
We have started working on a repository that unify the release process all of, because we have right now Java projects, and each of them have their own release process. And we started working on a repository that unify the release process, that one trunk-based development deployed to a specific environment. And this repository uses NX as well. But for Java, we are using Maven. For Java, we use Maven, but not all engineers knows that Maven can be also as NX, that you can build only one project and run the tests for it. It's like module-based, but it's not easy to be implemented as NX. To be honest, I never tried NX with Java. But at the end, inside the library, it uses Maven as well.
You can choose, like now they support Gradle.
Gradle as well, okay. And then it's just module-based architecture. And you can do it yourself with a native Maven. You don't need NX in place. That's why we are not advertising to use it in Java yet. We don't see that. But Santosh says you can use it if you want.
I mean, I did a demo once, so it went pretty well with Java.
Right, perfect. Thank you very much. Any questions anyway? They are going to be here in the category, so you can ask them. Okay. Okay.